Okay, it is 4 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll start with the roll call.
Mayor Sue Patterson,
Present?
Deputy Mayor Warren Jickert,
Present.
Councillor Harold Fleet,
Present.
Councillor Dave Hawking,
Present.
Councillor Carol Hudson,
Present.
Councillor Brandon Cable. I anticipate he will be joining us shortly, and Councillor Susan Zacko.
Present. Thank you. I'll begin with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabe people, who consist of the people of Three Fires, known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, on whose traditional territories we gather. We recognize the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. So welcome to our Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, December 2nd, 2024. Good afternoon, council, staff, guests, the viewing public, and the media. Council, does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest or a conflict of interest? As always, you are welcome to declare one if it should arise during the meeting. So item 4 is agenda additions or deletions, and we do not have any. And item 5 is our health and safety message. And I do want to state that the message demonstrates the town's commitment to safety to staff and our residents. It is intended to raise awareness of potential risks, promote safe practices, and help prevent injuries, illnesses, and fatalities. Councillor Fleet is going to bring us our health and safety message this afternoon. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Worship. Combating holiday stress. The holidays are a busy time, which can place extra demands on your time. By learning to reduce the stress, you might find that you enjoy the holidays more. Some of these tips could help you have a less stressful holiday. Share holiday tasks. Let everyone help with shopping, cooking, cleaning, and event planning. Sharing tasks let everyone be part of making a holiday special. Have a realistic expectations. No holiday gathering is perfect. Be flexible and let it become another holiday memory. View these experiences as a chance to practice being resilient. Keep up with your healthy habits. Stay healthy is your best defense against holiday stress. Stay hydrated by bringing water bottle with you to refill. Try eating a healthy snack before a party and you may be less likely to fill up on sweets. Practice gratitude. Having gratitude means saying thank you to others and for what's good in your life. Choose to be positive. Take time to unwind. You might try taking deep breaths or going for a walk. Even a little break can make a big difference to reduce stress. Make time for joy. This could be playing games, volunteering in your community, or taking a plate of cookies to your neighbors. Do what feels right for you and enjoy the holidays.
Thank you, Councillor Fleet. I'll leave the outside light on so you can deliver those cookies.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll have a plateful over to you on the 24th of December. So
I'll be waiting. Thank you. Item 6 is delegations, and we have one this evening. We have Luigi Presta from Think Compass and Steve Furness, Manager of Economic Development from Grey County, and they are going to speak about the Saugeen Municipal Airport. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. Appreciate it. Thank you, Council, for having us. Mr. Preston is joining us shortly. He has parental duties in picking up his daughter, so he should be on the call shortly. So thank you for having us. We're here to talk a little bit about the Saugeen Municipal Airport and some work we've been doing with the 3 EDOs and the Airport Commission. And Mr. Dave Hawking has been very supportive of our efforts, as has the commission. So let me just start off. We do this, Mr. Preston Luigi is a Grey County consultant for investment opportunities. He helps us do assessment on various projects and provides input. And in doing so, he's retained by Grey, and he is bound by confidentialities through that contract. So we first were asked to take a look at the Saugeen Airport, and the question was, in talking to the commission and the three EOs, does the airport have economic development potential? Right now, there's support from all three municipalities, but the bigger question, is there an economic opportunity? Is there a way to drive some investment, some employment, and have the airport become an economic generator for the region? So the first step in doing that, obviously, is talking to the commission and getting their ideas, but it's also just to understand what is at the airport asset-wise, what's involved, what is there, and then marry that up with a vision, and then to assess what opportunities there are. The opportunities today will be different than what they were 5 years ago, and maybe different again in 5 years from now. The market's always changing. So it's important to kind of test that in the market at today. So maybe you can move to the first slide, please. Okay, the second slide. Thank you. So the first slide, we spent quite a bit of time on this. We used it's just mapping out what's at the airport, and we used our Grey County GIS staff. We had to consult an airport expert who understands the meaning of what different runways require and different scales. So the northwest runway is a little different, has different setbacks and requirements than the east-west. We also discussed with the Bruce County planner and got feedback. And so what you see here is sort of in the green is sort of the setbacks around the runways. The runways are hashed in red, and in green is what you might call potential development. The hashed black marks are obviously hazard, and the yellow hash marks are the residential setback. So these are all constraints, obviously, that affect what land might be left or available to develop. And the lines that run through those green parcels are interesting because the higher the building, the taller the building, the smaller the parcel. So in other words, larger buildings, taller buildings have to be set back further from both runways. So it's a bit of a moving scale depending on what development you might attract. So what you also see here is that we see the water line, we see natural gas lines, we know there's power at the road. We also, potentially did a road access, and it may not be the final determination, but where would road access come from a couple of these parcels? So that's what you're seeing at a preliminary level on what we saw as potential as a starting point. And from there, we wanted to then go to the next level. Luigi, would you like to continue on, or?
I'll pipe in. You're doing great so far.
Okay, he's tag teaming. All right. So the next part is to understand a little bit of what the vision is for the region and what might be appropriate. And so that's an ongoing process that we're starting with the Airport Commission, and we'll continue to understand. I know in early stages, tourism is a big area focus. So that's something that we'll continue to look at as we go through and understand the vision. Let's move to the next slide. So we know our distance from market, from the big GTA market, and we know the size of the property. about 250 acres. The next slide. And we had mapped out existing runways, where the environmental was, and then proposed development opportunities. And these weren't developed by us. They were by a consultant, a planning consultant, because we wanted input from a planner that we engaged to give us preliminary thoughts on how they see and view each of these parcels. So at the end of all that, at a preliminary level, and at this point, you know, we have not spent a lot of dollars. We're doing what we can, first cut. We think there's over 25 acres of developable land, could be more. We see that the infrastructure or the service infrastructure is available, and that potentially there's a number of different uses for the airport, but also in general manufacturing or warehousing. This is something that we're finding when we look at other airports, that they generally have parcels that are just for general manufacturing, and then others that are required to be airport related. That'll be something that we'll have to talk about with the commission and understand what it is they'd like to do. There may not be, generally some of those airports we've looked at were a little larger, but there is opportunities here. So obviously when you talk about infrastructure, water and roads, gas, there's going to be investment required. And that's part of what we want to do next, is understand what those costs are at a preliminary level. And then to talk to Invest Ontario and Infrastructure Ontario about how they can contribute and understand. We think that there's an opportunity for them to assist. And the idea isn't that you build the infrastructure first and then hope someone comes and builds. You would line it all up, understand your costs, your site plan, have all your studies done before you go to market. And then once you get a commitment, then you could look at what the infrastructure needed and the investment is, and hopefully you know where the support is coming from. So the idea isn't that we're coming back to the 3 municipalities with a big bill. I can't say that we wouldn't come back with some type of contribution, but that's the starting goal. So our first step here is to get support. Sorry, I should, next slide. I'm already, we're down the next slide. So our next steps right at the bottom there, I've been speaking to the points up top, is getting support from the municipalities, understanding what we're doing. And the Airport Commission, I believe, and Mr. Huckey can support that or confirm, is get support from municipalities and understand what we're trying to do with the Airport Commission, refine the concepts, the uses, potential uses, and the costing, and then engage in Infrastructure Ontario refinancing, and then develop an investment attraction plan, test market, and then work the plan and see what the market's reaction is to this. Luigi, is there anything you would like to add to that process?
Well, just before circling back before this process, I wasn't sure in terms of the introduction about engaging in this opportunity of the asset within the region and the municipalities involved. It's definitely something that the region and the municipalities should continue to want to find ways to operationalize and keep the asset under the control of the existing ownership. In order to do so, to help underwrite the costs, it's imperative that assets like this stay within the region and municipalities operationally. There is a cachet obviously around airports, but in terms of investment attraction, it is considered a hub where a lot of manufacturers related to airport or even not are looking to be around. A lot of like-minded manufacturers with synergies tend to set up shop around this, and with the opportunities that exist around the region and our partnering region, it's something that we strongly believe opportunity of investment exists. In terms of being able to operationalize what you've seen today, which is, yes, it is at high level. However, there was a lot of work to ground truth the actual development opportunities. And as Steve had mentioned, the first 25 acres were easily accessible without creating any additional costs based on the services that existed and access that existed, which is very important. Existing access and potential service that exists to service or initialize the first 25 acres, which is fantastic. But before going forward and engaging province and engaging other ministries in order to support, as well as the private sector, one of the things the province always looks for is that unanimously all parties involved are agreeable to the actual project itself. So they do look for that assurance that this is going to be something that's supported, positively supported within council and within the communities and within the media itself, so that they can back it. So you never want to be in a situation, or the province tries to not put themselves in a situation where there is risk that they're going to support a project that may not go forward. So that's one of the reasons why we're here today. I think collectively the committee, the region, and the third parties that have been involved in this to this point strongly believe that this asset can be operationalized. It can underwrite the existing costs at some point through the process, and really look for the support of council here in Hanover to help us along our path by continuing to support what it is that we're all doing here today together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Steve, Luigi, that ends your presentation. I'll open it up for questions. Council, any comments or questions? Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, gentlemen, for your report. I just, you touched on tourism, which is, you fly your plane in, you have your lunch, you fly out. And I think we got to really look at transportation to reach out to the municipalities and to manufacturing some type of transportation from Saugeen Municipal. And I don't know if that's something you've looked at in the past or not.
Yeah, so we are currently at the regional level, we are looking for different routes of transportation and initializing the support for that, not only within or access to the Saugeen Airport, but all around. So we are, I think we're having positive conversations all around in order to kind of further these in transparency their ideas at the present time. But we are gaining a lot of confidence within the communities that we're working with to actually push the issue of transportation forward. So it is, I think you've identified some of the concerns we have, not just within this particular asset, but a number of the assets within the region.
Thank you.
Councillor Cable online, and then Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Stephen Luigi, for the report. Just wondering if you could clarify what you mean by servicing is available. I'm assuming we're meaning water, but wondering if you could clarify that. And secondly, would we be talking about like long-term land leasing? Is that what the concept would be here?
I'm going to go ahead, Luigi. There's water infrastructure on site. There's no sanitary, of course, but you're also in the vicinity of power and natural gas, and so that's there. Sorry, what was the second part of the question was?
Land leasing.
Land leasing, yes,
Yeah.
which is a common. We don't know the model. We'll have to look at, when we get talking, but that is generally the model for airports, is land lease.
Yeah, we would be looking to have the asset remain in the existing ownership and looking at the land leases, providing that for the most part they support the development opportunity that exists through financing, which now banks are becoming a lot more open to that model, especially with anything that is government owned.
Anything further, Councillor Cable?
Okay, thank you. And I assume as a next step, would you be putting together some preliminary costing on the, I guess, the cost to produce reports and items that are required for a next step? Like, I think it would be important that we would have all municipalities on board.
And
Yeah,
we
so
just-
I guess that's what we're doing here today. We're looking for all municipalities to be agreeable to take these next steps. So we do have costing, high-level costing right now in terms of actually getting the lands to a developable state. I think the work that's been done already has added, I think, tremendous value to the opportunity of the lands, no matter which way kind of we move forward. With regards to actual next steps, I urge that yourselves as well as the other municipalities involved come together to agree to allow us to continue to move forward. In that case, what we would do, not only with costing, but we would also get interest from the parties that were mentioned here today, the different levels of government and the different ministries that can support the actual rollout or investment for next steps as well.
Councillor Cable, anything further? Steve, I just want to clarify, when you said water, did you refer to the Hanover Water Treatment Plant, or are you thinking of wells?
I'm thinking of the Hanover water main that goes through the property. And there may be, it's there, so.
Okay, good to know. Councillor Hawking.
Hi, Luigi and Steve. Thanks for coming to our council meeting tonight. I just want to reiterate this whole project. Number one is it's based on a lot of investigations, so that I'm going to follow up on your excellent presentation last Thursday with the Grey County Economic Development and Tourism Forum, where it's no longer appropriate to have someone come in and say, oh, we'll be ready in 2 years, we'll be ready in 18 months. The idea of our studies is to have all our ducks in order, so that when you approach someone or someone approaches us, we can say, we've got this, we've got this, we got this, we're ready to go, rather than, wait for 2 years while we do more studies. Am I correct on that position, Steve?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to understand, and what the asset is, what it's gonna take. We don't want to sugarcoat anything. And to have it all ready to go. You know, you want to provide certainty to an investor. You know, the last thing they want is delays and uncertainty. That's not something you can deal with. You can't take that to the bank. So the more we can understand it, the better. And sometimes it takes time, but we're getting to the good part, I think, where we get to put it all together.
For those of you in attendance on Thursday, I think the messaging was pretty consistent that if there were lands available and there was a plan in place, there would be interest from parties represented by the province itself. But even outside of the international investment, there's a lot of local investment that's also, I think, interested in opportunities like this, but there has to be a plan in place and it has to be close to fruition. So we need to be able to provide, as Steve said, certainty in terms of what that development timeline is.
Okay, Councillor Sackel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Luigi. Thank you, Steve. All of us on council that were at Cobble Beach last week really appreciated your talks. It was wonderful. So thank you so much for that. I'd like to know about timelines. Have you presented to the other councils yet? And if so, are you expecting a letter? Do you have a deadline? Thank you.
I believe by the second week of January, we'll have talked to each municipality.
You are the first.
You are the first, you
Mhm.
know.
So what we would like to do is have an MOU of sorts signed prior to the March 1st date. What we'd like to do is have the conversations, the preliminary conversations with the ministries prior to the new fiscal year. Allowing us that 30-day grace prior to the new fiscal allows them to include conversations with new budgets that start April 15th. So that's what our hopes are that we can achieve.
Other comments or questions? Well, I don't see any. So we're thanking you for your presentation, and we'll await the response, the replies from the other councils, and then move forward from there. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, item 7 on the agenda is business arising from the minutes, and we do not have any, so we'll move on to staff reports. Item 8. This is 8.1 on page 10. It is report DCS 1324. It's from Chris Walker, our Director of Corporate Services and Treasurer, and the subject is the revisions to the tangible capital asset amortization policy. I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. Councillor Sackle and Councillor Cable. Chris?
Thank you, Your Worship. As council's aware, under the Public Sector Accounting Board regulations back in 2008, we had to start putting tangible capital assets on our balance sheets and our books. And we created a policy at that time called the Tangible Capital Asset Amortization Policy that was used as a starting point in setting up the useful life of each asset. During the recent review with our consultant Watson and Associates, staff were to review the existing in-service dates and useful life to ensure that they were correct and realistic based on the replacement of assets that have occurred over the past 10 years and to use towards our long-term financial plan towards this. As such, we reviewed the estimated useful life and have reviewed the applicable departments and have updated to reflect the realities of our assets. It's probably best if we just go to the page 12 of your package, because that's the actual policy, and everything that's is to be changed is highlighted in red or struck through. However, I noticed that I missed 2 strike throughs for you on page 13. Under equipment, technology and communications and machinery, there's each section that says pooled. So pooled equipment, pooled IT, and pooled machinery should be X through because we no longer have pooled assets. We got rid of them last year. So your asset technically has to be $10,000 or more to be on our asset inventory. So those should be struck through as well. The other one that was added on that page is raw sewage pumps, because the existing machinery did not have the proper year's useful life on that. So we needed to add one there for 30. On the next page, we had an existing building exterior for roofing. So we wanted to show that the shingles that are roofing should be 25 years, but we have a few flat membrane ones that tend not to last 25 years. And we've added in 15 years there because that's the reality of those flat membrane roofs. And then on the next table 3 on page 15, most of the road-based water and sewer and storm, all the underground, were originally put at 80 years. However, as Ron was going through it, we noticed that anything prior to 1990 were very inferior to the quality that they've been putting in since 1990. So we've gone back and anything that was prior to 1990 has been reduced to 60 years because we're finding that those are the ones that we're replacing all the time and they're less than the 80-year amount. So that's why we've switched those to 60 years. So what it is basically reduced it from 80 down to 60. So the amortization will be faster on those over the years. And you'll see all of that in red. So it's basically water mains prior to 1990, sewer lines prior to 1990, storm drains, and urban road base. Anything prior to 1990 is all 60 years. Anything after 1990 retains the 80 years. And then on the next page, sorry, on that same page, there should be the road surface. The hot mix HCB, we've changed that to 40 years because if the roads itself are 80 years, we're going to make a change on the top at least once during that life cycle and not 35 years because you're only going to, if If it's 80 years useful life, it should be every 40 years that we do it. So that has been extended. So that'll give us a little more amortization, less amortization because you have 5 extra years for that. And those are the only changes to that. And basically, as I said, all the changes were in red. There's no upfront financial. It'll basically be the modification on this policy would be the changes to our future replacement costs and the yearly amortization costs because of the changes in the life cycle. And the link to the strategic plan is safe and reliable infrastructure and open responsible government. The recommendation is that this report, DC 13-24, revisions to policy FIN 003, tangible capital asset amortization, be received, and that council approve the changes to the attached policy as presented. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor of report DCS 1324? That is carried. Item 9 is correspondence requiring action. We have one item. This is a motion from the town of Aurora. They are requesting support to support their motion about the redistribution of the provincial land transfer tax and GST to municipalities for sustainable infrastructure funding. So I haven't asked for a mover or seconder. Depends on the discussion, whether you want to support this or note and file. Deputy Mayor Dickert.
I think we should support it. I think, the province has a lot of extra revenue streams as well as the federal government, and we can all use it. So I'm in favor of supporting this and advocating for it in any way we can.
Any other comments? I will only say that I have no idea where the provincial land transfer tax goes and what the province uses it for. And I do find it a little odd that this is affecting provincial and federal in the same motion. If that was coming from this council, I think we would separate it, but I guess each council does it on their own. So we have one the deputy mayor moving it. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hudson. All in favor? That is carried. Let me just write that down. Okay, item 10 is reports and correspondence for information. 10.1 is the Police Service Board meeting minutes from November 18th. And I can share that the board discussed ways to reduce the budget, which we heard about on our budget day. And the police have determined that a new hire will be deferred until the fall rather than the beginning of the year or even the first quarter. But the board did emphasize that it's important to remember that they need to supply adequate and effective policing, and it needs to be maintained. List of the members of the new police station building committee members was shared with the police board members, and the draft strategic plan was reviewed with a final draft to be presented at the December board meeting. And Eric Lusink has been appointed to the position of police cadet, and he will be working his way through. And one position for cell monitor has been filled and 2 officers have been promoted to second-class constable. And just for information, to go from 4th to first-class constable takes 4.5 years. And open to questions if anyone has any. Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just like to make a comment to those councillors who are attending Roma and the new year is in I think it's in the new year. I saw an article that the province is considering millions of dollars to those police boards that are under the auspices of the OPP. I would hope that the government just doesn't focus on those police boards, but also considers police boards of municipal police services, which we are. So we are entitled to receive some funds too, because the policing costs, as you're well aware, have gone up. So please keep that in mind when you're down there. And if you get an opportunity to speak on our behalf, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Item 10.2 is the library board meeting minutes, and there's 2 sets of minutes. Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just go over some of the highlights. Some of these things, as you're aware, have already happened. So for the September 18th minutes, there is some communication on working with improving the yearly book sale. As you know, this year it was a very great success, but there's going to be some changes made on how volunteers are helping throughout the year. So going forward, the volunteers are going to become part of a fundraising volunteer group instead of specifically just a book sale volunteer group. So that is something new. In regard to fundraising, as you're aware, the library partnered with the Hanover Curling Club to put on the Ho Ho Homicide, and it was very well done. It was a good night, and there were 75 out of the 80 tickets sold, so that was a good response. The Spooky Story Trail, I think we've talked about the different partners that were involved in that as well. Fired Up Food Truck, St. John's Ambulance First Aid, and the YMCA Grey Bruce Owen Sound. So I'm sure you're aware that fundraising takes a great deal of dedication and time, and the staff puts in many hours to ensure that the fundraising events are carried out in an exemplary fashion. And they do this to increase the awareness of the functions offered by the library and increase attendance in the programs, and to partner with different groups in the community as well. An application has been submitted to speak at the 2025 OLA Super Conference to speak about the work that they've done with AI. Our Hanover Public Library has written the first AI policy of all Ontario libraries. So kudos to them for doing that. And lots of people are following in the footsteps of that. They are also gearing up to this week to put in a float for the parade. So again, some awareness for the library on that. And we've already done all of that one before. So it was voted on to eliminate the non-resident student fees as well. And then moving right into the board minutes from October the 16th, we had Lauren Butchert, the assistant librarian, come in and speak to us on collections. And she is in charge of the collections, and spoke about how the collections needed to be weeded out because they hadn't been done for quite some time. So a lot of books had not been circulated, needed to come out. And so moving forward, they're going to be balancing a collection of fiction and nonfiction, and filling in a lot of the gaps. So there'll be lots of new things going on with that. And some of the key findings from the survey of libraries were discussed. And some of the key findings are that Hanover serves a much higher population than surrounding areas, with one single branch, excluding just the one. And the Hanover rent is significantly higher when compared to other libraries larger than us that receive more funding. So bear that in mind. We pay almost as much as the Owen Sound Library for that. And Hanover generates the most fundraiser and donation revenue of the surrounding area. So good for them for doing that. And I also got just a message before I came in here regarding two things. Alex, the assistant librarian, has reached out to Launchpad, and they have 3D printers there. So they're going to help them use those 3D printers to do projects, I believe, at the Launchpad. So that's one. And the other is that with the postal strike, Blueberry, who is the library mascot, has reached out to the head elf to make sure kids could still get their Santa letters in. They have delivered 66 letters to Santa, and there's been 50 responses so far. Go back to the children as of last week. More are still coming in, and they are writing the response letters with help from volunteers, and some of the volunteers are Canada Post employees. So Santa is still getting letters from the children. So that's really great. I think that was good. They stepped up for that. And that's all I have.
Very good. Councillor Sacco.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Hudson, for your report. My question is just, is there an update on the hotspots internet devices? According to your report, Carolyn was working with Bell to get a price for data services. I know that I use that all the time when I travel. So I'm just wondering, where are you at with?
Yeah, there hasn't been anything come through about that yet, but it is, as it says, it is something that they are still working on. And another thing I'll mention too, that because of the construction that's going on down in the library or in the lobby with the floor and the walls, et cetera, there's been some discussion about the donor wall that's down there on the south, well, kind of on both sides, actually. So the donor wall is getting filled up, and with no more space to add some, they're investigating sliding panels to put over the top so that people can still see who has and who will in the future be donating to that. So that's something else that they're going to be doing.
Okay. Very good. Item 10.3 is the Source Protection Committee meeting minutes from July 26th. This committee meets quarterly. And I just want to remind everyone that the committee works to ensure drinking water is clean, safe, and sustainable by protecting sources of municipal drinking water, such as lakes, rivers, and well water. And they are continuing to review requirements for proposed new or replacement wells in Chesley, Blue Mountains, and Kincardine. Item 10.4 is a release from the Saugeen Conservation, and they are advising everyone that there will be no ice operations at the Durham Upper Dam. And this is a necessary step to protect public safety and prevent the dam from failing. And I don't know if you're aware or have heard, but they would, conservation employees would put in stop logs and flashboards, which were left in over the winter. And engineering has been assessing this process, and they've advised that this is contributing to the deterioration of the dam. And I believe those flashboards and stop logs were put in to stop the frazzle ice. If you remember many years ago, that there was quite a buildup of frazzle ice getting into Durham, and there was going to be lots of flooding and damage and whatever. So that was a good discussion at the conservation. So 10.5 is Grey County Council and Committee of the Whole highlights from November 28th. Council received a delegation from a resident regarding cycling and road safety on Grave Road 1, and County Transportation Roads is looking at that and hoping to move up the reconstruction of that road from 2030 to earlier. And we also had an individual, Stephanie Keating, present on Nuclear Innovation Institute about climate action. And one of her comments was, we're going to see more winters like this from climate change. I went, oh, good. Safe and Sound was there to talk about the emergency shelter and what they learned. This shelter is in Owen Sound, and they opened it up throughout the night so individuals could find a place to stay warm. And they are asking Grey County for support because they were applying for funding. And of course, Grey County is going to support them with a letter of support. And they do, Grey County does support them with funding, at least they did for that warming center, the pilot project. So we'll see what happens with that. And council received an update on planning efficiencies and centralized planning, which we've all discussed and had our input. And their next step is to have a public joint meeting of all councils, which will be scheduled in the new year. And Grey County Warden Brian Millen presented his closing address for the 2024 term of council. And I had the pleasure of driving with Councillor Fleet for that meeting. Thanks for attending. And that's it for items other than planning and other meetings. The dates are on this agenda and on our website. Dates to remember and announcements. Our council budget meeting is on December 9th at 4 p.m. The next regular council meeting is December 16th, and the municipal office will be closed December 24th, 25th, 26th, and 27th. And at this time, I'll ask if there's any notices of motion. Seeing none, we do have a recommendation to meet in closed. And that is that the council of the town of Hanover meet in closed session in order to address a matter pertaining to personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal employees, with respect to an organizational review. I need a mover and seconder to go into closed. Councillor Fleet and Deputy Mayor Dickert. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you.